Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to be motivated by your host, Reverend John Wheeler! Now shut up! You shut up! Sit down! Shut up! Shut up!
Welcome to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We have some exciting news. A good friend of mine has recently passed away. No, that's bad news. And also, he wasn't really a good friend. But I want to dedicate this episode. I have to remember his name. I want to dedicate this episode to the memory of Danny Andrews, who used to go by the name of Paul, which wasn't his real name, and that didn't make any sense. He used to go to the garage, but you may know him, sort of, as the other guy in the story where I took acid working at Toys R Us, and I put it on the internet, and everybody thought it was very funny. The young man who was a terrible, terrible accomplice for me at that job. He helped me steal things. We would drink in the car in the parking lot, and we worked overnights. And that very last day where they forced us to work on, like, Christmas Eve during the day, even though we had no training whatsoever aside from putting crap on shelves, and we didn't do that right. And we wore street clothes at night. You know, they didn't care, so we had to get, like, our Toys R Us smocks, and we were on acid, but, it was kicking it pretty hard even by the time they were telling us we had, because we'd been up the night before working overnight. So it was like a 24-hour shift, and the only way to stay awake was to take a heroic dose of, LSD. And we went and picked out smocks that didn't fit us at all, or vests, I guess they sort of were, blue vests. I don't really remember. I might be talking to someone off camera, it's hard to say. Actually, I should probably mention, my friend Meredith is here, but she is, not on the camera.
Yeah, hello, everyone. I've decided to elect to remain off camera today. Just I haven't had time to trim my mustache and, get the bush under control. So I'm just gonna hang out over here and yeah.
Yeah, Meredith has not trimmed her bush, and
since I've been with you on camera, like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, when we all used to do this naked, and our pubic regions were far more trimmed. That. Also, yeah, my lovely wife is behind the black curtain over there for some reason, just giggling and flipping the bean in the massage chair that we got from some guy who clearly stole it from a trade show and sold it in his garage. What does that thing go for? Like $6,500?
A lot.
Yeah, and it was like $150. He's like, yeah, I have a special relationship with the then he just like trailed off, and I don't remember what he said. And then all the fucking serial numbers are like scraped off of it. So that's a hot massage chair. And also it does have a heat function. So it is a hot massage chair.
Ooh mama.
Ooh mama! And Alexis is in it. It's a very hot massage chair. Wazza, wazza, wazza. But yeah, so we, if you've seen this story, it's like, I think the thing that got the most, it's got like 500,000 views on TikTok or something. It's like, and there's like people being like, that's not what really happens when you're on acid. And I know they're 13 and have never done any drugs, except for maybe like K2 or something like that. But
will you please retell the story, because I was having trouble remembering, when you told me about Danny's passing. I'm like, all right, shit. I mean,
so you didn't meet him though.
I don't remember the story. So.
And I don't think Derek knew. Our friend Derek was like a manager at Toys R Us, but he wasn't really there overnights. However, I will say this: there was a crossover character. There was a guy named Gilbert that had worked there for a long time.
Oh yeah. My God, Gilbert was hard as fuck.
Gilbert was amazing too. And like let's talk about Gilbert first too. I don't know if he's alive or dead, but if I was a betting man.
Gilbert was from California, and him and his brothers or whatever moved from Cali.
And they were like legitimate. They lived in like Crenshaw. They lived in like the rap video part of Compton, like that people like sing about shooting people at, like. And Gilbert, so he worked at Toys R Us in 2006 or 7 or whatever when I did. And I think he worked during the day, but I think he did overnight sometimes, 'cause I met him too. And, but yeah, he was a Hispanic fellow. He wore the little round glasses, and he was like bald. So he looked like he looked more like an evil German supervillain than like a Mexican gangbanger, but he was basically both, I guess. But anyhow, like, he got shot, and he like that's why he got out and like moved here as far away from California as from SoCal as you can get. Is Minneapolis is pretty close to, unless you're going to Canada. But yeah, and then like all the dumb little suburban kids would be like, "Man, you used to live in Compton. Why'd you move out? Why'd you move out?" And he would just lift his shirt up, and he had all those blue gunshot wounds. Guys, like that's why. Jesus. And they'd be like, "Oh shit!" And like, yeah, it's not fun getting shot, you little bitch.
Just for fucking real.
Yeah, and but he was a maniac. Like, so I mean, he would do the stock orders sometimes too, and he was the guy where he took an entire order of Xbox, the original green and black Xboxes came in, and he just brought it from the loading bay truck over into the trash compactor and just flattened all of them. It was like in the loading dock for like 4 minutes. And it was like, it had to have been like 50 of those things that were like $900 back then. And they're like, what happened with that? He's like, they never showed up. And he just flattened them all. But it was a good move because then it was like the numbers were so bad and we would just take things all the time. But anyway, that was Gilbert. And Derek also knew Gilbert. But Derek, I don't think, knew Danny. Danny actually showed up partway through the season. I remember I was working there when I still worked at the garage. I was also doing overnights at Toys R Us during like the winter time. And Danny showed up at a shift. He's like, I work here now. And I'm like, what, really? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, great. That's awesome because you're always on drugs and stuff. And that's, I want to be too. And then we were. And it was great. So we worked, the overnight at Toys R Us. And we were supposed to be like, some people, it was like it was a prize to get let stay for the season. They're like, no, I don't want a real job here. What are you, stupid? Like, that's not, no. And, he didn't either. He's like, yeah, fuck this place. And, but they were like, okay, well, on your last day, and this is really your chance to prove yourself. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. That was like the worst place ever to work, too. Like, the managers would have fights with each other, so we'd end up having to do things that are impossible just so it would show the other person that their plans were bad, but we'd get yelled at anyway. It was like the dumbest, and I ran my mouth a lot, but they were like, we don't have even the people who are a tiny bit competent here, so please don't fire John or any of these people who he's riling up to also cuss at us and make fun. But yeah, I was like, I don't really want to like start work at 10 at night and then just keep working until like 4 in the afternoon the next day. It's like, well, you're gonna have to figure out a way to stay up. And we had those gel tabs. And I was like, well, I couldn't sleep last time that, because I think you had taken some of those.
Honestly, I've never had a gel tab in my life. I have done liquid acid, I have done paper, I've never had a gel tab. Oh, I've had a sugar cube. Gel tabs is something I've never done.
Yeah. And the nice horse ranger fed you those sugar cubes. You got to hold your hand open so you don't lose a finger. Yep. But yeah, because the horse will bite you. Well, and you've been horsing around a lot lately with the ketamine, but
we'll get into that another time.
That's for another time.
Sure, that's definitely a full hour.
That's an on-camera talk, but all right.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Yeah. So like we were like, well, this sucks, and like it was one of those bad acid ideas where we'd like already been drinking at work, and it's like you don't really want to be drunk with that, but whatever. And this stuff was like insanely powerful. So it wasn't really one of those things where I was like couldn't sleep for 20 hours, but it was more like 10 hours of just mayhem. And mushrooms. You set your watch to 7 hours later, and you're like, all right, by the time it says this on the microwave, we can drive again, and we'll be fine. Like or pretty much. And acid, it's anybody's guess. And so we're like, whatever. We just took it like in that little we had like an hour in between. It's like, what are we gonna go home and sleep? We're too drunk.
Seriously, acid is one of those drugs. I just want to put this out there that like. I did not come down from until I literally, like, air quotes, went to sleep. And I don't know how I would fall asleep. I would just, like, wake up and be like, oh, I'm not on acid anymore.
Yeah, that was basically...
So it's like you could go definitely, like, 8 to 12 hours and then...
your brain
still be on it. And it's like, until I, sleep...
which is impossible. It's like...
I know, it's impossible, but then eventually you do. And then I wake up and like, oh, now it's over.
Yeah, and that was what the hope was, and it worked. But I was like, I thought it would be like some of these other ones we got where I'm like, I know that I can't sleep, but I'm like, everything's a little wiggly, but it's not really much. These were like, I think, that was a story that they were actually blue Felix acid or something, but it was a lot. It was like, oh! Like, it was too much for what we were doing, but we saw it through. So anyway, if it's strong enough, and this is my experience, it will actually start. People are like, that story's not real because it doesn't kick in 20 minutes. I'm like, you've never had obscenely powerful acid. Because then, it could take like an hour or two. And I'm like, yeah, not when it's that strong. You'll start feeling weird really fast. Be like, uh-oh. Like, Someone's gonna.
Didn't take a lot.
We're gonna poop our pamper. Well, no, by then it was too late. If you already started feeling weird after 20 minutes, you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like this is. I mean.
Whoopsie daisy.
Oh yes, because the ironic thing too is I worked this into a comedy bit once where I talked about how like how can you like not take. You can't handle 5 milligrams of edible THC, but you can take like a quarter of mushrooms and be basically a lot better off. And I'm like, I don't know, but it's true. It's like I could, if I take like 5 milligrams of edible THC, I'll be too afraid to watch Encanto. But like, there's ghosts in parts of it. But it's like a quarter of mushrooms I could take and go to like a Trump rally and be like, like I'd just be having a blast. Like, let's go to the gun range.
I was just talking to my roommate, like, actually yesterday, or was the other day, we're like, whenever I do acid, I want to be in public. I don't know what it is. Like, I want to be at a carnival. I want to be doing crazy shit. I don't want to sit at home.
That's
like,
part of our history.
And just, like, lock myself in a closet. I want to fucking go out and just, like, be amongst the people.
Acid is easier to do that with because it doesn't bother your stomach the way mushrooms do.
Yeah.
And it's also a different trip completely. But, like, and as Ben once put, it's lab coats versus drug rugs. And it's like, that's true, though. But anyhow, so yeah, we're like, let's take these, like, the acid was, like, really, really strong. So by the time, like, we were, like, getting out of the car and walking across a parking lot. I mean, also, we were, like, sleep deprived and stuff. It's like, we're already up. Like, I didn't acclimate to overnights. It was, like, temporary.
This was, like, at the beginning of your shift or after your shift?
This was after the overnight shift and before the day shift. We had to just roll on into.
Oh, God.
That's why it was a little bit of oppositional defiance and a little bit of modern problem solving. And they should have not only kept us on, but gave us a promotion, although we didn't want to be kept on, and said so. They also were like, you're never allowed in here again. And I was like, well, that's a shame. But, and then I think I went in there a bunch again. But anyway, so like we're walking inside and it's like, oh no, like everything is all bright and like the store is dirty and disgusting. Like it's a horrible, rotten place. Like you're like, wow, being on acid, going into Toys R Us, and you just see the rainbow wonderland of like black streak marks all over the floor and just crap piled up in the middle of the aisles. I'm like, yeah, it didn't matter. It looked like a wild Tetris puzzle of just like, so we go in there and like, you're gonna need fucking your vests and your like name tags. You wear them overnight. We're like, yeah, where do we get those? Just try not to laugh. And we're like, okay. And we going back. And, like, I find, like, I grabbed one of the blue vests. It was, like, a quadruple XL. Like, went, like, down to my knees, like Alvin and the Chipmunks. Like, Theodore's blue. It was like, eee! And it was right when that movie came out. So I printed out, at the time, the name tag McLovin. Because they let us use the printer. And I'm like, But, see, Danny upped me. Because he actually did everything. I thought I was hilarious in my fucking... Ku Klux Toys R Us clan fucking robe going down to the floor, and then my McLovin tag, like it's from a movie, haha. But then he went and found the smallest one he could, and it just had like one button, like whenever Curly would wear a suit and the Three Stooges just barely holding on.
Brilliant.
Just fucking, and then his thing was just a bunch of like X's and J's and letters and numbers, and at that point, I looked at that and was like, crying, laughing. It was so funny. I'm like, what is that? He's like, I don't know. And I was like, yours is so much better than mine. He's like, McLovin's pretty good. Okay, like, and then what felt like 14 hours later, it was time to turn around and go out there.
Was it in that slowed down, like, acid talk where it's like...
Yeah, I was like, that's really good, man. Like, where it's all straight, like if you were going to eat a burrito, you'd just be like squeezing the goo out of it, like, I can't do this. Yeah, it was like that. And then, so we're like, we had to go out there. And the thing is I think if the acid had been less potent, this is an important part of the story, I think that it would have been a really rough day. Because, when you have that 1 foot in reality, you kind of get worried about stuff. But by the time we, like, dressed up in our things, I do not know how long we were back there. It was fully, like, mayhem. Like, people were already piling into the store because it's, like, the last second shopping thing. It was, like, the busiest day in the world. There's still, even with our help, they were horribly understaffed. And it's not like I didn't know how to run a register or where anything. I kind of knew where some stuff was because we'd stocked the shelf, but it was always different anyway. Like, I don't know what we're doing. We're just wandering around making the company look bad. Like, that's what we were going to do if we weren't on acid. Like, we're just like, can you help? And be like, I don't know. But now I felt like I could help. So we go out there, just know nothing. The managers are just like having heart attacks, running around places that dump. And like people would come and talk to us and stuff. And that's when, like, I would just, I want to be amongst the people. The mushrooms would have made me a little bit more like, this is weird. I kind of want to go in back or outside and be under the sky for a while and go for a walk. This was like, okay. And I started commenting on everybody. So like someone would come up with their kids and they'd be like, hey, where is this? And I'm like, did you realize that you're just like little people? Like, and they're like, what the fuck? And I just had the full like dreads down to my waist and stuff. Like, yeah. Like a guy that crawled up.
Those days, huh?
Yeah, it was like 2006 or 7 whenever the.
You should have not been out on the floor, man. They should have just never.
I don't know. Yeah. I told them that. I'm like, I don't want to. The other thing was, though,
being out there.
We didn't really have to either. I think we kind of were like, we bitched, but we agreed to it because we're like, well, let's go be idiots. And I mean, Danny was good about that. He was good at talking us into like, it'll be funny to get paid even more to go like wreck Toys R Us and maybe go to jail or whatever. I don't know. But yeah. And it was like, someone had like, I noticed someone wearing like press-on nails, and I'm like, you have fingernails on your fingernails. Like, why would you do that? And they're like, what? And then just like, where's the? And then people are the full like Woodstock guitar solo, like, and I'm like, like I could barely like closing one eye because everything's so crazy looking. I'm like where is this thing? And I'm like, I think it's up there. I have to go. And I would just like climb up on the ladders, like, I'm looking for it, just to nobody.
I can't imagine
it was just
anybody
like pushing everything off onto the.
Like,
well, because they were just desperate.
Oh
yeah. Yeah, I didn't have any tattoos, but I was like much more overweight with just cousin it black Rob Zombie dreads down to my waist, just being like.
I mean, I loved it, but it was
well, and then also just
horrifying to like regular folk.
It was me. Well, yeah, it was really horrifying. And then Danny was like this short, like a little kid-looking kid. Danny kind of looked like Haley Joel Osment, like a little bit. He had that face, like not when Haley Joel Osment grew up and turned into a weirdo, but like he looked like little kid him, and. He was like it's like I barely knew what he was doing. I just remember him laughing at me and at everything just a lot. Like, so they would also be like, I'd be helping people by telling them they have fingernails on their fingernails and that their kids don't know that they're just little people, but they'll find out. And like all of this shit, just climbing things and knocking stuff over and just wandering in circles and being lost and yelling and like it was like being at one of those carnivals. I think I don't know. But then he was just following me around, just tears streaming, like hysterically laughing. And I was like, we're going to go over this way, man. And he's just like, yeah, you told those little kids that they were people. I'm like, yeah, they're not really people. I was just lying to them. And people get just looking at us because we're just having this conversation as loud as I'm talking right now, just like as far away from you as I was from the people. Just kind of like, yeah, I don't know why they thought that was true because I don't, And I just barely remember, and there's no end to the story except for like eventually they were like, you guys can go, and I had no idea if it was 8 hours later or like 20 minutes later, and they're like, get out of here. Like,
did you drive?
I couldn't read it. No, I did drive there, so I think it was way later. Because I remember having that like, it was like, when it settled down to like a regular trip, it was just like that morning. Which was, I don't know if it was before this or after this. We were just doing acid mushrooms all the time. But when we were leaving, we were like driving through like Richfield, like from the parade and Lachlan's or whatever, and we were still kind of tripping. Sure. And we saw like military vehicles driving down my parents' street and those birds flying everywhere.
That was Convergence, and that was
that's what that was. That's what we were doing. And I was like, people were like trying to merge. I'm like, would you get out of my way? Some people are just trying to have a Sunday morning drive. And I was screaming. I like drive tripping way harder than I should, and I've done that a lot.
That was the one time where actually you drove and I didn't, which is, I was usually the one to drive on the hallucinogens.
On drugs, yeah.
And yeah, that was like, why were there tanks in the middle of the field?
And I mean, not rolling down Penn. I mean, rolling down like 71st and James, like just where the houses are.
In the goddamn neighborhood.
Just things with like 8 wheels.
What was with the birds?
No, the birds were everywhere flying around our car. They knew. The birds knew what was going on. They were just like, danger! It was like the Wizard of Oz.
Weird. I can't. I mean, my memory isn't great to begin with, but that was just. Yeah, I don't know. That was. Oh.
That was one of those. Well, that was one of the first times too. The military vehicles, and Alexis knows about this, where when you trip, I think mushrooms more so, but things that wouldn't normally happen, and you're not hallucinating it because it'll be corroborated by other people that aren't tripping. They're like, yeah, I don't know why there was like a little person convention at the mall when we showed up. Like, how that would never have happened if no one on acid Where like, what was it, John Beveridge was like Jurassic Park, like, look, it was just pouring out. He's just like, ah! And he's terrified. And he's like, if we move around, they can see us. Like, what are you talking about?
Like, great idea is like drop a bunch of acid and go to the Mall of America.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I would still do that to this day because my God, like.
Well, yeah, because like, what's gonna happen? Like nothing. I remember Scott Bibas, who is not a guy that would drop drugs at all, but would just be like a calming voice that I always remember. When we were like, you know, like I'm on mushrooms or whatever, it's like, are you sure we should go over here? And it's like, well, it's not illegal to be on. I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to be like,
nobody knows.
Nobody knows. But and I learned that. But Scott pointed out, it's like, what are they going to go? Like, dumbasses. It's like, dumbasses are everywhere. You can be a dumbass. Like, no one cares. They're not going to be like, oh, there's dumbasses in the park. Like, I was like, that helped me, though. It's like some of the dumbest shit I've said to, like, Jake, that he's just like, it's reassuring. Like, I just hear your voice being like, they don't know what you're doing. Steal that or whatever it is. I'm mangling something, but, like, it's that thing of, like, sometimes the voice of reason is just a lunatic. You're like, yeah, you're right. You're right, crazy voice.
So, I mean, when we reflect back on this story, basically nothing happened and you were just on acid.
Yeah.
And
the whole story is the lead
really
up.
Long,
yeah.
And you told kids that they were people.
Yeah, and they're not. But there doesn't exist an acid story at a retail establishment that has a point. There was like the time when I like was back when there was different recipes for Robitussin and Dayquil. Like, Dayquil was what they would make, you know, meth out of back in the day, but then they just switched Dayquil, so it was just the same shit as Robitussin, which you don't have to make meth out of because it's a drug by itself. Like, you could just Robotrip, and no one, you know, sent me a letter about it in the mail. So I was like, I drank like a half a bottle of Dayquil because I had the flu working at Ragstock. And what I actually was doing was robo-tripping all day at work, but I didn't realize it.
Shit.
I was trying to rearrange the same thing as sunglasses, and every time I did it, they were just a big mess again. But, like, I couldn't make it happen. Like, I was putting all the colors next to each other, or so I thought. And then then I didn't. It would just be like, they're just scattered around all different. And I was like, I don't think I can do that. That was what the thing I was talking about when the letters on the cash register keyboard thing were like sliding around like Scrabble pieces. I was like, come on, guys, let's cooperate. And everyone's like, there's like a line around the store, like Taylor Matari's just looking at me. And
that
I'm
was
just like,
Ragstock days. I was going to ask.
That was Ragstock.
That sounds like Ragstock.
That was Ragstock. God, Ragstock was... So I don't know how long Taylor Matari is for this world, but man, the stories I have with that kid at Ragstock is fucking like... That was like, when we just spent an entire day, like, leaving it unattended and playing when we realized there's doorbells on each of the businesses in the back hallway, and we spent an entire shift playing Ding Dong Ditch with, like, other, like, footlockers, just running away and going in the elevator. I built that robot to watch the store.
I loved, like, the back little, like, hallways of the Burnsville Mall. It was fun playing around
get
there.
all the way up to where Hot Topic was and just go irritate Brian. It was like Clerks. I'd be like the only person working at Ragstock, and I'd just hang a sign on a robot I made out of cardboard boxes, being like, be right back or something, and I would just like go through the back way, all the way up there, and then I'd go in and be like, are you... sort of guy who's like, hey, who's watching Ragstock? I'm like, I put the robot in charge. Like, it was just like, Brian, why do you care about your job? By the way, if you're watching this, you know that you cared about your job at Hot Topic, and you would laugh if you were here, so this isn't me being mean. Also, you're not watching this, but you should. Brian, wait, he can't hear me if he's not watching it. Someone else that knows Brian Pearson that watches this, make him watch it.
They'll let him know.
I'll let him know. I'm going to be like, Brian, I mentioned you in the podcast. Now you're obligated to watch. That's my new thing, by the way. I'm like, ask me a bunch of questions. And I'm like, I mentioned you in the thing. And then I get all these views.
Here we go.
It's a fucking scam.
By the way, like, R.I.P. Danny. And that was
R.I.P.
really
Danny. Yeah, Danny, we lost a good one. And by the way, he was a kid that popped up on and off, like, through my life or whatever. Because I've been talking to him again recently. He was going to be on the podcast, but I don't know. It wasn't it was a medical thing that I think had been going on quietly for a while, so I didn't know. But I was like, I'd be like, hey, we should do this, and then he'd be like unavailable really weirdly, and I'd be like, and then he would like post about the doctor like a lot, and I was like, oh shit, I think he's like Norm Macdonalding it a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like I had no idea. I just saw someone else's status, and I was like, but it's weird. It's been a long time since, or maybe never, that I've been like on the line with someone. Even if I'm not real close to him, but I was like supposed to do something with them, and then they died. Like other people I know that have died, I was like, oh, I remember that guy.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to him? Like, yeah, he's still dead. They're like, oh, right. Like the Frank Grimes. Oh yeah, Frank Grimes. Whatever happened to him? But yeah, and I have fond memories of some of those people. Other people, glad that they're rotting in hell. But Danny was actually, I was like, yeah, man, we should because he was into comedy and stuff, and he was going to go to the Monday or whatever, and I was like, yeah, let's blah, 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 and I didn't hear from him a while, and he was just dead. I'm like, oh, well, I guess I can't be too mad.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm sad. It's a bummer. But his mom reached out to me and was like, "Will you tell that story at his service on September 11th?" And I'm like, "Well,
Danny would be proud."
I was gonna say people are very cavalier when they're like, "Oh, that's what they would have wanted. That's what they would have wanted." And they're fucking lying. They're like, "Grandma didn't want to give you the house; she hated you."
God,
and whatever.
Please tell all my embarrassing, terrible drug stories. And
dude, if somewhere in the afterlife Danny knew that Reverend John Wheeler told the Toys R Us acid story at his funeral on September 11th, he would come back to life for a minute, and be like, "Fuck yeah," and just fall back in the grave.
Yes.
He would, yeah. So I really do. I will. It's on a Sunday. People are free. I'm just gonna advertise it like it's a show. Come to this guy's thing. I'm just gonna do bits until his parents get mad, and I don't think they will though. I think they're kind of into it.
Appreciate
so yeah. I'm just gonna go up there and do comedy. I'm just gonna wear a bright orange suit or something like Stanhope and just be like, woo.
Anyway, you had some.
Thing,
you wanted questions. You have answers.
Yeah, so I'm going to very nakedly just point out that when I go, give me suggestions for songs to cover, I'll talk about it on the podcast, or ask me questions, ask me anything you want, I'll talk about it. It's just a trick to get you to listen to the podcast. But I hope
Would you not tell people your tricks right away? I mean...
No, because if they don't listen, it's going to keep working until they listen, and once they listen, they'll realize how good it is, and then they won't, they'll continue being a listener.
Sure.
Whoever has the bike obviously stole it, and they don't deserve a reward. You know how this works. We learned from Pee-wee.
Oh, we did learn from Pee-wee.
We actually did. Quite a bit. But yeah, I wrote them on paper because I didn't want to, look at a second computer. I mean, that's just depressing. But I wrote people's names down. And by the way, I got 6,000 answers, and somebody what if you pooped your pants? And I'm like, yeah, fine. But
for another time.
Yeah, no, but they're all, it's dumber than that. And I do like reading the dumb ones. I read all the bad song ideas and shit all over everybody when they didn't even follow the rules of when I was like, hey, I want to do a cover song. It has to be from the last 3 to 5 years, and people have to like it and know what it is. This Mr. Bungle side project thing. I'm like, no, get the fuck out of here.
I didn't listen to the full podcast.
No,
but,
no one does. That's why I talk about all the mass shooting stuff.
I did leave you a suggestion on a song to cover, and it's okay.
What was it?
It was Britney Spears.
Oh, that's right. No, yeah.
Give me more, but I don't know if I would. I mean, I definitely
it's too old. It's a good one.
It's not, though, because
oh, yeah, she's always in the news again.
Yes. And it's the second most, besides Toxic, it's the second most played song on Spotify. And it came from that really cool record she made.
Oh, I like,
2010 or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it was, it was super poppy, and I actually liked it. And I don't,
I like that record.
I'm such a,
I'm more of a Kesha guy if I'm going to listen to one of them.
And I don't listen to, popular music, but I totally...
Popular music.
I bought that Britney Spears record in 2008, and yeah.
No, I know a lot of people, some of the snobbier, talented band guys that I knew who were younger at the garage back in the day, all owned that record, and it was weird. It really leaked in. I liked it, but I liked certain pop.
I don't know, but and I was trying to be more open about it, but yeah, so I thought that song might be good just out of popularity's sake, but I really like that suggestion of The Weeknd. I think
that's good. It's already started on it.
Is I second that one because I think that would your vocal range and everything is just perfect.
Well, it's funny too. I was kind of trying it, and I realized that he is at that exact high timbre where if I go an octave below, it's my cool Peter Steele, David Bowie voice. It's and I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the light. It's all weird and Peter Murphy goth sounding. I'm like, I should just do it like that. That's kind of cool. And it's it could be a vampire song, sort of. I'm just realizing.
Yeah.
Because he talks about the Sin City is dead tonight and no one's out and I'm blinded by the light, and you could be Sin City is dead tonight. I don't want to be me. We were just listening
there's
to
a lot
Typo
of really
Negative.
Cool shit you can do.
I don't want to be me anymore.
But anyway.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Go on.
I told you I met Peter Steele once, right?
No, but maybe I was at that show.
No, it wasn't at a show. It was at the NAMM conference, and he was just sitting at the bar.
Oh, shit, damn. I forgot you went to that, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I got to say hi to him. I mean, it was a little bit before he died, too. And that guy, they're not joking when they're like, that guy is humongous. Like, the size of his skull is like, I realized it was him. You know, sometimes you see someone, you're like, is that the guy from? And like, there was no mistake. And he was like leaning at the bar watching some weird after hours thing that I was watching. I don't know what. I don't remember. But like, I kind of like turned and saw just like suspenders and was like, and I was like, I just said hi. I was just like, I was ordering a drink too.
Fucking tall too, or is he just like
humongous? That guy, yeah. Like if I was standing up, his shoulders would be like, ugh. Like it's like that.
Dang.
So it's like what he looked like combined with his music, combined with his size, is why the notorious groupies he had were like the hottest goth girls I've ever seen in my life. It's like, well, come on. Like, and also he posed in Playgirl, and the guy's got a fucking fist for a cock. Like, I'm like, holy shit.
Of course he does.
Well, he's just, I think it's just, some guys are big dudes, but their wieners aren't, but like gorillas, you know, they're kind of, that guy just was, naked pictures of him were just proportional across the board. So like, so I'm like, yeah, that guy got that kind of attention. And, you know, wasn't that a life lesson that he was always so depressed? It's like, yeah, the grass is always greener. But
inspiration of all my, like, book and comic and everything.
Yeah, his sort of real life character was the inspiration for his fictional characters and this book series Alexis likes. But yeah, I was just kind of like, hey man, big fan. He's just kind of like, and then like went back till he gave me like the thank you. But I think he was like leaning on the bar like drunk, like just like. And I'm like, buddy, no, you didn't ignore me. I don't know. And I didn't want to bug him any more than that, but I could say that, like I said hi to Peter Steele at a thing that wasn't like a Typo Negative concert. But yeah, so that brings us to about a half hour, which is good. So the questions. Yeah, so people ask me dumb joke stuff, but people actually asked me some good ones, which is weird. But I wrote those down along with everyone's name. So there's this kid. These people are probably like 35 now. I have no idea, but like they were younger back in the day. But Louis Indiluhu Martinez, I think I remember him being a garage guy that had bands and stuff. But it's been so long that every like kid that had some sort of look is just a guy with a beard. And I'm like, I don't know like who you people are. Like you don't look like the kid with pink Liberty spikes that always had like a teddy bear with him. Like, that's how I remember you. And like now you're just like wearing glasses and a beard. Does he wear a beard? And yes, he does.
Oh, I want to play Guess Who?
Does he look like a bitch? You know, Danny Andrews never wore a beard. He had the same just pudgy baby face like his whole life. You know what? He stuck to his guns and didn't wear a beard. But anyway, Luis. If you're a man of somewhat Hispanic origin, I'm apologizing if I'm getting it wrong, and if you're not, that means you're just a white person and no one cares. So I'm getting it wrong on purpose. Fuck you. No. Mr. Martinez asks, what's the most fun I've ever had at a show? And he was like, but he did say that I could go either as an attendee or a show I was playing. And that actually made it really complicated, except for I actually do have a story that is the most fun I ever had at a concert. I've seen great concerts, big concerts, small concert. I've seen my favorite thing that I finally got to see. I saw like Rammstein open for other bands at First Avenue. Like,
oh wait, that's I'm not the one who should be asking questions. I need to shut my mouth.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, I've seen things that are great. You know, like when I saw fucking System of a Down like opening for Fear Factory at First Avenue, no one knew who they were. I was like, and they were every bit as awesome as they were when they were really big. So I was just like, what is happening here? This is exciting. Holy shit. Anyway, but that was just, you know, a good show. We're seeing Chromeo with a full live backing band. Whatever. Good shows, yes. Most fun I ever had at a show was weirdly late in my life because it was like, well, at this point it's probably 8 or 9 years ago, but it was like before I met Alexis and a little bit after I stopped dating Sadie. I got invited by Kathleen Bibas and like Ann Constantine. I think Ben Hurley was with me. And Andrew WK was playing at the Triple Rock. I mean, he was already so much bigger than that. But he was playing at the Triple Rock, so it was just him with his piano and then like techno backing tracks, which by the way was a slight inspiration for how I'm doing it. How much fun that was. I'm like, well, fuck it. I don't need whatever. I'm just going to go up here and yell over techno. That's fine. At this point in the music scape of the world, that is entirely acceptable. And it doesn't have to be rap. It can be whatever I want. Some of it might be rap, but it can be like anything. There could be like Limp Bizkit breakdowns, but it's just with techno and beats and whatever. It doesn't, and that show was proof. That was, so it was Andrew WK. He's like insanely famous. If he had his full band or something, he would have been playing at least in the First Avenue main room, and probably somewhere bigger at that, like the Myth or something. And he booked it at the Triple Rock, and someone had an extra ticket, and I got in, and there was no railing. They didn't set up people or anything. It was just like a local Triple Rock show, and I needed it for one. The company I was with at that particular time were having a lot of fun. Like Kathleen was still drinking like a goddamn bull in a china shop, and Ben was newer. He was also younger, so he was like doing backflips off the stage. It's like nobody cared what anyone was doing, and he just kind of played this greatest hits thing, and then would like play the piano and just talk shit and be funny. And he taught us how to exercise, and like it was just this loose, like I was on stage for like the last song with like 50 other people, but like just like it was the most like, how is this happening even? Like shouldn't be allowable. We're in like 2013 or 14 or something, and like no, it would have been like 12 or something, but yeah, it was like totally crazy. And then my favorite part of the whole thing is he did, again, what I do, where the set, no one was hitting go on each song. It was just like, it just goes, it's like I'm playing for an hour, and it just is all set up with the breaks, it just goes. And I like that, actually. And so the encore was like, you know, he didn't play Party Hard yet, you know, and he's obviously going to like come back and do that. But instead of going like, all right, see you guys later, and then everyone cheers, he's like, okay, like, you know, he didn't do that stupid thing. Yeah. There was a countdown, and it was like a robot voice, and it was like the weirdest idea, but it whipped people into such a manic idea. It started at 100, so he just goes to like kind of, he leaves, and it goes like 100, 99, 98, 97. We're like, what is happening? Like 50. People are kind of getting drinks at the bar. 54. It's down in the 30s. Like, what is going on? 30. And then he comes back out and starts being like 30, 29, 28. And like everyone's like 27, 26. Like pulling down 25. Like everyone's just screaming, and at once like 4, 3, like grabbing 2, 1. When we like to party, we will party hard. Do. Why? Just everyone just goes all over the stage. It's like he's just carrying him around, like screaming, and like. And I was like, yeah, like 34. Like it wasn't like, oh, I was 14. It was just like, yeah, we'll party hard, just flipping shit over. And like that was like the most pure, wild music experience. Because I realized what I like about music. I love chaos. Like I don't want to be like, see the way the guitar solo, like I don't care, like my message is getting out. I don't even know if I care about that. But like, you know, an SMB would sell out the What's Up Lounge, and people would just be like throwing like the soundboard like into the audience. Stuff like the ceiling was caving in. Like that's what I live for. Or those things at the fucking St. Cloud venue that just was illegal, and there was like guys wearing dresses hanging upside down. Cheap Thrills. Those dangerous ass things attached to the seat. Like there was this place in St. Cloud that was like this punk venue that held like 50 people, and there'd regularly be like 100 in there to see us, and it would just bring your band with us so we could hang out and drink Jägermeister backstage. And they had these things on the ceiling where you could grab, and it would like rotate, so people would just go, but it was like so high up that you could someone would have to give you a little boost, and then they start taking your feet. It just you was flying around, kicking people in the face, and like getting your pants yanked off, be like, hey, your dick's just out, and like people, yeah. So that's what I'm having trouble with. My love of chaos. Like again, I've played huge shows. Like the 2 biggest shows I ever played, I think were like opening for Wayne Static and Blue Felix somewhere, or like a Dirt Fest where it was like legit 6,000 people that were clearly there. It was a fest, but it went to like the horizon the way it does. It was like, it was still light out. We were earlier, but everyone was there and having fun. That band had a lot of fans where that was. And then that MSI show, and like the one in Denver and the one in Grand Rapids, Michigan, the ones that were like super huge where everyone went nuts, who'd never heard of us before. Like, yeah, that's fun because they're big. And you're like, I didn't expect my life to be like this. Whee! And then after that, you're like, oh, this won't happen again for a long time. And I'm like, I hate myself now. So what is happiness? That moment before you need more happiness. Right. But yeah. Probably In the Name of Chaos, because again, I've played all over everywhere, and at this point, in different bands and different situations, festivals, basements, whatever. It's been a real mixed bag of crazy shit. But I think one of the funnest shows I ever played, if I'm being honest, was that when we'd opened for a few things and we got our little chokehold, when Just Say Yes headlined the garage for that first show. When we had our first show without being there with Broken Side or Blood on the Dance Floor, all those other kids that are in jail. Like, yeah, it was just us, and there was like a trillion people in there who were not SMB fans at all. Like, I didn't know who any of these kids were, just screaming, we want to hear We Treat Bitches Like Hoes. And like, the feeling of how, and I think we like tore our own light show down, and we're just being like, but it was so sweaty and terrifying, and like, we were like signing, like we went back and, you know, I had like Turf and Dan Rao in the band. They'd be like, what's a signature? This guy, he's like a 15-year-old guy, would like take his shirt off, and we're just like writing Hail Satan all over him. And it's like his parents came to get him, like, what the fuck? And like, it just had that feeling of, and the fun thing about that was like, you know, I started SMB in 1997, and then finally got to where we were like bringing in big all ages crowds in like 2004 or 3 maybe. And then in 2005 we're on tour with MSI, and then we had a few years of craziness, and then it started tapering off. It was a lot of work, and it was fun for like a bell curve there. But then like Just Say Yes was like, I'll bet this will work. Like if I just do the grossest, most popular pop thing and just dress like idiots and just whatever, and hand out CDs to all the kids, that existed a little. And they'd be like, yeah, Johnny's so fresh, and blah, blah, blah. And it like our second...
Oh my God, you did call yourself Johnny.
Yeah, because we made separate accounts. No one knew who we were.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, they were like, wait, someone was like, other people in bands were like, that's you, after they saw us. And they knew exactly who I was, but I had like the hat and sunglasses.
So fresh.
I was dressed like a rap idiot.
Being your like hairstyle, well, I'm still your hairstyle to this day. But
yeah, look at that fine tight fade.
Lining up that fucking awful chin strap and just like...
Oh, the white mohawk I had.
Oh my God, I loved the white mohawk.
Oh, that was great.
Like amazing. That's one of my favorite looks on you.
That picture came up from like 11 years ago or something on Facebook a while ago.
So nuts.
And yeah, or longer than that. But yeah, there was just this feeling in the air of like, look what we did. Like I just wrote these songs to be a sarcastic, because everyone was like in these hardcore bands like, yeah, if I wanted to sell it and do that, it's like, well, try it. And they're like, no. I'm like, I'm going to do this. And it worked immediately, and it was huge. I had no exit strategy. I just stopped doing it after a while. I'm like, okay, well, like, I didn't think this would work, but I'm going to go back and work on my other band now, which is probably stupid. I should have just kept doing that. But I also fired everybody because I was tired of hearing their opinions. But, like, and I would have gone on to do that many more times in my career. I fired band members like it was a bodily function. That is just so great. And I'll miss that now that I don't have those anymore. Now that I'm just a solo... electronic yelly man.
Yeah.
But then again, now if that ever really popped off, I'd be like, all right, I'll bring in some heavy hitters. I have a drummer live, you know, like how Combi Christ or Aesthetic Perfection was just kind of the guy, and then they're like, all right, we're kind of big now, let's get like a live drummer and a guy to do some things.
Yes.
Which is funny because Joe List was Combi Christ's guy, and he's in Aesthetic Perfection now.
I think doesn't Aesthetic Perfection kind of have a new live lineup.
Yeah, they do the thing that I look forward to maybe someday doing, where I'm just like, this isn't anybody else's thing. You're here because you're lucky to be here, and we'll see if you're here next time. Oh, that would sound so good. But yeah, I don't want to be like, what if this part was like, yeah, worse? No, yeah, we're gonna do it how I have it. But yeah, it's some people have added things over the years.
Anyway, you have more questions.
I certainly do, and it's not very important that I get to all of them. It's more that I keep being funny until an hour goes by. And we got 15 minutes.
Sure, we can answer one more.
So, man, there's a few. Oh, yeah. Laura, now Laura Werner, formerly Laura Hine, formerly Laura Pearson for a while there, asked me, what is my most irrational fear? And I had to ask her a clarification question. I'm like, irrational is kind of a objective concept, you know, like, what do you mean? And I'll just do a recap of our interaction where she talked about, well, like, she moved into a place, even though I think it's in Bloomington or whatever, but she watches so many of those, like, First 48 and just murder shows and stuff or whatever.
True crime.
True crime shows, yeah, like people do. And those are great. But she's like, it works her up into a lather where she's all paranoid. And like, so she'll like hear like something and then like run around the house with a butcher knife. And I was like, oh, that's funny. And that's not that irrational, because when I first moved into my house, my wife and I's house, and you were here and we're all hanging down, I didn't realize that when a car drives through around the corner in the alley, it kind of goes over the little alley segment bumps, and it sounds like some goblin is running around upstairs if you're in the basement. If you're over here, it's like a dunk. I'm like,
we might have been filming Rum Dumpster.
I think we were, or talking about it, but either way, as I don't hide the fact that I own an AK-47 legally somehow, but I took that and ran around the house yelling at doors and things, so it's like, yeah, I mean, Laura, is it that irrational to run around with a butcher knife when I heard a sound and ran around with a loaded machine gun screaming like you woke Hunter Thompson up from a nap? Like, well, go here, you bastards! And then I realized I heard it again and again, and it was just cars going by. I'm like, oh.
It sounded like there was somebody upstairs.
It did. It really was unnerving.
Who, like, dropped something upstairs? Who's up? Wait, we're all downstairs.
Yeah, we're all down here. There's no one else hanging out. So we're like, all right, well... we all ran around with guns screaming in the night. So that was funny. But yeah, that's not an irrational fear. That was a reasonable response to that. So I'm trying to think. I have fears, but the trick is which ones are irrational. I used to be really afraid of aliens. Like, not
me too.
The movie aliens, but like alien abduction aliens. Like, super afraid of that. A little afraid.
Grays.
Yeah. Remember we watched that Red Snow, or no, what was that? Some movie. It was like a winter movie.
Fire in the Sky.
Well, that one, but there was
oh shit!
the one with the guy from Ghostbusters. Walter Peck was like he had a beard and he was.
It had one of the Wahlbergs in it, right?
Yeah.
It's just that it panned up to this super.
Yeah, the big tall one, just when you were like, ooh, like that was no good.
That legitimately scared the shit out of me, but that was like the only scary part of the movie was that.
Well, it was, because the thing they were dealing with took different forms, and it just turned into one of those things that we know. Remember when I didn't try to, I was just scribbling on the table and I drew like a gray with like real human eyes.
Yes,
like,
I do remember that.
Yeah,
I hated every minute of it.
That was real. I'm getting nervous talking about that. So yeah, so aliens pretty scary. At this point though, I'm like, get me out of here. I don't care. Yes, please. Yeah, it's fine. I think no one should be afraid of anything that's trying to take us off this planet. And
if anything, aliens are just like us traveling through time.
Yeah, which I don't know why that's less scary at all. I mean, if you really start thinking about it, just kind of like, yeah, humans from the super far future seem to think something real interesting is happening right around now, and they're going to come in and...
Or the past.
The way far past... Well, the Bob Lazar thing is that those crash UFOs are like, yeah, that actually, those were archaeological finds, and like... Yeah.
So many cool things around that and fun shit to talk about.
Yeah. And I will, because I'm not beholden to anything here.
Well, that brings me to ketamine and how ketamine fucks with time and...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, how your brain perceives time, so...
Well, because time isn't real. Your brain is just an organ. The same way that, like, light photons bouncing off things. Your eyes are just organs that are...
Until I did ketamine, I didn't... I understood that I perceive time linear, but now it is...
No.
Completely. That doesn't even make sense to me now that I've seen it another way.
Yeah, linear time is just the way we sort things out. It's not the way things actually work.
I swear, I don't want to get too much into drug talk because...
Why not? That's all we've been talking about, really.
I know, but we, got to wrap this up in a few minutes, but...
Yeah, well, and we will, talking about drugs and aliens, because, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's some pretty big podcasts that used to focus on that when they were more interesting. That are just about cancel culture or whatever now. But I
don't know, maybe we'll save it for when I decide to be on screen.
Yeah, we need to have a big old alien episode. Yeah, that's what I'll do.
Anybody interested in...
And I'm gonna start. I'm gonna every week. I'm gonna admit that this is just a trick to get you to watch, because it's gonna work. If it wasn't gonna work, you weren't gonna look anyway. And if I admit that that's what it was for, you're not gonna go, well, no, I'm not gonna watch. Like, no, it's funny. You're in on the joke, right? You're not part of it. I'm not using you. That's what abusive, manipulative people do, and that isn't me. So. That's other people. You need to watch out for them. Anyhow, yeah, my irrational fear. So aliens, kind of, because I don't really think that that's a thing to worry about every day. I worried about it more often than it was ever going to happen, which at most would be once, probably nunts. My nutsack getting cut open and my balls falling out. That's a big one.
Ooh.
But I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, if I was jumping razor wire fences, but that's not the world I live in. If I tried to climb a fence now, I would, like, separate my shoulder and throw my back out way before I slice my balls on anything. My balls would be nowhere near the top of a razor wire fence. I couldn't get my hands up there. So, yeah, that's an irrational fear. See, I used to be really afraid of the doctor, now I sort of don't care. When I got that, I liked my doctor, old Doc Leonard, and I had to go get like an injection I have a hip impingement. I get annoyed with health problems, but I'm not afraid of the doctor. And I'm not really afraid of the dentist, except for the fact that it makes me gag and throw up if someone even looks in my mouth. So, I mean, that sucks. I'd rather not deal with that, but yeah, you know, it's not a fear. Sock puppets don't really bother me. Irrational fear. I guess the ballsack thing in Aliens. That's a pretty good answer. Perhaps
it goes back to the puppets we were talking about.
The puppets. Hope I don't have a bad dream.
Oh, what's his name?
I don't want to go to space. It just makes me think of Syphil and Ollie. There's like the connection where he's like, is this happening? I don't want to go to space. God, I don't want to go back and rewatch that show. Oh yeah, by the way, like we do have access to HBO Max or Paramount Plus, whichever the one is. All the new Beavis and Buttheads are on there, and I really want to sit around and watch those. Maybe we should take one. Because, by the way, that
sounds great.
That new movie was really funny. Like, funnier than it should have been by a lot. I was like, wow, they done it. They updated this, and they did it with time travel, too. That was like why they ended up now. It's because they went to space and went through a thing. And then they had all the they walked into some, like, college class, and it's like, you have white privilege. And they're like, really? And then they just started going around breaking the law. It's like, excuse me, I have white privilege. It was just like, dang, and then they got arrested. It was really, I was like, updating them to now worked way better than it should have. And the whole series is the same writing, that the movie introduced. So I'm like, I should probably watch that. That's probably funny. So.
That sounds pretty good.
Irrational fear. Never again seeing Beavis and Butthead. Which sounds like it's never going to be a problem because they keep making that show and everyone keeps loving it and it keeps being really funny. So I guess it's a totally irrational fear. I'll do one more because this is a good tale and now we're under 10 minutes left. Dominica Cicerelli. And Alexis, are you awake?
Nope.
All right. Well, she would gladly help point out that Dom a bitch. But despite that, oh yeah, and if you don't know who Dom is, he's was Blue Felix's fake keyboard player for a while.
Okay.
Like the guy that would stand in front of the light. Well, yeah, because I made all the well, either that or someone did way back in the day. But he was post-Ybot.
Oh, so he just touched the button.
He touched the buttons. He mostly ran the lights, and he had a sampler that he annoyingly played way too much. And he almost won a Medi Award for all the synthesizers on their like latest record that I just. But he would have just been like, I would have just been like, John, come up here. He's like, I didn't do any of that, like at all. Like I wasn't even there. But he could do like the backup screams where I could do some of them, but like since. Unlike their original bass player who would just like let go and just play open chords whenever he had to scream. Like I tried to work playing it right in as a priority and screaming as much as I could, but there needed to be a keyboard player that barely does anything is a good backup scream thing, and Dom was that guy, even though Dom a bitch. But he asked, at first it was more of a demand. But then he formed it in a question, so I'll accept it. He told me to tell the tale of the Toothless Snake Woman. And the Toothless Snake Woman was the sister of this lady that would book us in like a suburb of Chicago, Blue Felix, at this kind of cool venue, and that like it was one of those weird places in other states where it's like all ages and almost a little garagey, but there fully is a bar. And they also would just let us do whatever we wanted. Like, we'd just be behind the bar, like, throwing shit like gremlins. Like, I mean, they just didn't care. And it was, like, but there's always tons of people. It was good. It was what you want, which is to be a traveling weird band, is that experience everywhere you go. And, but anyway, the lady and I don't remember anyone's names anymore. It's too long ago. But she was really nice. She was, like an older blonde lady. And she had, like, an older sister, though, who was, like, this rail-thin broad with no teeth and never wore dentures, but she was like, really, really skinny and just did that thing where like, if I didn't have any teeth and I wasn't wearing some sort of veneers or something, I'd probably kind of be like, yeah, man, that's cool. Blah, blah, blah. it was like, it just, and it wasn't like that gross of a place, but it's like, it just didn't matter to her at all. Like someone would say something funny, she'd go, just gums. I'm like, ah!
I mean, I feel like someday
you
that could be me, and I may,
just a cackling, toothless bitch. Like, no.
Yes, and
don't be that
totally,
person.
Like, just lean into it too.
And I guess.
I mean, if you're gonna be fucking toothless, just lean into it.
But I think that I can't remember if there's a part of the story. It's either she might have had a bit of a healthy mustache, but in my drug-addled mind, I thought that her gums had hair on them.
I mean, there could very well be.
And that was like the biggest thing with her. And
show that shit off too.
I had taken edibles or so. I'd made some mistake. So like the show was like fine, but then it was like getting to be too much, and then she's just like, like, oh, and I said that she was hissing at the moon, the toothless snake woman. And then another thing, Dom, there's no story to that. It's just like I was on the bus for like 2 hours afterwards, as Exhale put it. He's like, this was like before I ever thought about having a podcast or doing stand-up or anything, but he's like, if you could bottle what you were yelling for 2 hours after the show while we're like on the bus and sell it, it would be worth $1 million. Like and that's what I want this to be, where I'm just
work on that.
hollering. Well, it's what this kind of like a little drunk, and see, when I have you here, it makes me feel more like I'm on a tour bus getting overly riled up. Like, I can rant on my own. And clearly anyone listening knows that this is not what you would call a conversation, because 90% of it is just me yelling and you trying to keep me slightly on track, which I will not be kept on. But
I'll do my best.
Well, that's fine. Try not to do too good, though.
Okay.
But yeah, the story of the Toothless Snake Woman is, it was just this lady I saw when I was not in a good place to see anything, just with no teeth, just screeching into the night, laughing at something. And she's also really skinny. She's the Toothless Snake Woman. I don't know. Dom, I'm happy to share this story, but
what's the question, Dom?
He was like, who is the Toothless Snake Woman? But the problem is, I don't know who it is.
Yeah.
None of this might have been real either. Because you know what's funny? Dom thought later as the story evolved and everyone's just a high ass, he was remembering a different lady in a different state. And he's like, I thought you were talking about this other lady. And I'm like,
this
no.
might be make-believe.
No. She was real. But the thing was, Dom got it all fucked up. He's like, I thought the Toothless Snake Woman was this fat lady in Flint, Michigan, who, so not a snake. Like, not a thin...
May have been toothless, though.
No. Had one really bad dead tooth, like what Dennis's wife and Always Sunny. She had a dead tooth, and it was nasty. And it was enough where if you didn't like her, you'd refer to her as toothless to be mean. But, no, she had, all the... I mean, they were yellow and broken, but she had teeth in her mouth, and maybe they weren't that bad. I don't know. But, no, and the problem is that really took away from that story, because... And I'll end on this story real quick, because I have a couple minutes left, and I don't want to get into any more questions. But this lady, I was like, Dom, you're out of your mind, because she had most of her teeth. This other woman had zero, just none. That thing where the dentist is like, we have to get rid of these, and then we're giving you dentures. And she's like, I'm into half of this plan. And yeah, but no, this lady was dating this fat, creepy guy that was always around those shows, which there was plenty of.
Sure.
But, and he... So, okay, that guy was a fixture, and then that lady was there. And then this guy, we had roadieing for us, because everyone is an ex-con meth head that would ever roadied for Bluefield. Except for now, there's some younger metal kids they kind of got. But it was mostly just people, I don't know where Jake found him. It was whoever would be working for Tiger King was working for us. And and getting paid in Walmart meat and a place to sleep or whatever. But we had this short little weird squirrely guy who he's he's like Boomhauer. You could barely understand him from King of the Hill. And his name was Sean. And he was I could imagine he was handsome before he started living real hard, so I always called him Sean Penitentiary.
Nice.
That stuck. Sean Penitentiary, I think he liked it. But yeah, he was this weird little goblin, and it's boy, the roadies didn't do well with the ladies on the road. It was Jake, then me, they got the silver medal, then basically nothing else, and then the roadies were kind of, stuff would happen occasionally. But Sean Penitentiary went and had relations with this large woman behind
the snake lady.
No, that Dom thought was the snake lady. And I'm like, Dom, what are you talking about?
Okay.
That's not, but the fat lady was the one that fucked Sean Penitentiary. And after that same night, like later, the dude that she came with was sitting there going like, you know what, man, it's awesome. I finally got like a good stand-up woman that I think I can stay with. And Exhale's like, what, you mean that toothless fat whore that our ex-con roadie banged out behind a dumpster, that one? And he was like, yeah, right, man. And he's like, ha. And I'm like, X is funny. So, yeah, but that's not the... But just the straight, it was like a Dan Aykroyd, like, it was like, yeah, you mean that toothless fat whore our ex-con roadie banged out behind a dumpster? Yeah, that one. Like, he just rolled out of his mouth. It was like, X, you dog. But yeah. And I was like, I thought that was a snake. It was like 2 years later. I thought that was a toothless snake woman. It's like, no, the toothless snake woman had no teeth. She had pubic hairs growing out of her gums, and like she was just sitting there, like just on all the meth in the world, just screaming and laughing at the moon. And
I might have nightmares.
Good, and that is where we are ending this on the toothless snake woman hissing at the moon with her pube gums.
The Reverend John Wheeler podcast takes zero responsibility for the words, actions, or ideas of its host, guests, or listeners. Though the people on the screen may at times be speaking directly to you and may occasionally give you direct calls to action, neither Reverend John nor the Alchemical Cocktail Lounge are under any moral or legal obligation to answer for the potentially disastrous repercussions that may arise if you are stupid enough to actually follow the orders of a raving lunatic. Think for yourself and do whatever you want, because you're on your own. If anyone ever tries to sue this podcast, black SUVs will converge on your location in the darkness of night and you will never be seen again. Remember to like and subscribe.